Have you ever wondered what to say or do when you meet a person with a disability? To look away, offer help, or perhaps strike up a friendly conversation without any fear? Many of us hesitate, not out of indifference, but fear of saying or doing the wrong thing. And that's exactly what I want to talk about today. Throughout my school life up to year 10, I often felt like an outsider in the school community. I spent time alone during the breaks. When going on school trips, it was really hard to find someone to live with in one room, and my classmates didn't invite me to social gatherings. And I looked for the problem in myself. I thought that maybe my introversion or perceiving things more deeply than was customary at my age was a problem, until I found people with whom I really felt comfortable and understood that my classmates simply weren't used to communicate with people who were different from them. And one day I realized that it wasn't only my problem. Dozens of students face this every day for various reasons. Around a year ago, I attended a training about accessibility in the youth work, and it changed my mindset completely about the topic. I found out a lot about problems that my peers are facing every day, and from that moment I couldn't stay silent anymore. Time passed, and I actively worked on the topic of a barrier-free society and communicated a lot with teenagers with special educational needs. Most of them emphasized that even adults, such as teachers and assistants, still fear communicating with students with disabilities, and their classmates see this and also take on the role of observers. Imagine a school day when you sit alone at lunch, spend the breaks just wandering the corridors, and feeling like you're totally alone in the whole school. Not the most pleasant situation, right? But why does this keep happening? Why do so many of us just look away instead of reaching out? The problem now is that teens with disabilities are often seen as weak links, very different from healthy adolescents. They are hugely missing out on social life at schools. This problem didn't appear by chance. During Soviet times, disability was often seen as something negative or shameful, and unfortunately, this mindset still exists today. The next important point is simple lack of knowledge and education. In Ukraine, as in many other countries, at school we study physics, chemistry, and tons of other not always useful subjects, but we aren't taught the most important things. How to live in a world full of different people and communicate with them easily. That is why it is often difficult for peers without disabilities to understand those who have them, which further deepens the problem, as disabled teenagers aren't accepted in the school environments. You may think that there are not so many kids with disabilities in Ukraine and that putting so much effort into making their stay at school comfortable is unprofitable. But based on 2024 data from the Ministry of Health of Ukraine, there are up to 160,000 children living with disabilities in our country. Recent Ukrainian research shows that inclusive education improves the level of social competence and academic achievements, but also leads to rejection of children with special educational needs and bullying. But what does this mean for students with disabilities? Everything I listed earlier leads to the situation where disabled students experience learning loss, limited social inclusion, poorer mental health, and greater school dropout risks when supports are absent. Moreover, the negative consequences on them falling out of classroom will come later. When a visible segment of students is excluded, it undermines the community cohesion and the ideal of equal citizenship, especially critical for national recovery after war. Ukraine and the world risk losing potential contributions of many people with disabilities in rebuilding country economically and culturally. All these consequences aren't just statistics, they affect real kids. At one point of our lives, we might have dreamed of being invisible, but students with disabilities have the opposite dream, to finally be seen. Now you may think that the problem is so huge and it's hard for a regular student to fix it. But what if I tell you it's not true? Of course, you cannot change the law or somehow better teach the tutors to help your disabled peers, but what you can do is definitely just try to change your mindset first. Open Google and type accessibility guide in the search bar. you'll see a completely free online site where all the correct terminology to speak about different types of disabilities is listed. This will help you change your perception about different people and no longer be afraid of addressing a person with a disability inappropriately. The following small step you can take is the next time you see a student with a disability at school, try to establish contact. At first, it could be just a simple talk about school, work, hobbies, etc. And when you find some common interests, you can go to events related to this together, discuss them, and even create your own projects. But don't forget that this is a teenager just like you, so behave naturally. I assure you that there is no one who can tell you better about the needs of students with disabilities than them themselves. I convince you that this step is hugely important as it builds trust between you and your disabled peers and helps them feel seen and valued. Also, the next time someone in your class jokes about disability in a negative way, don't allow that. You don't have to argue. Sometimes a simple "that's not funny" is enough to make others think twice. This is crucial because such jokes make teenagers withdraw even more into themselves and feel as if the whole class is against them. When you are feeling more confident in the topic, you can move to the next stage. Organize a workshop, mini talk, or even a social media post about inclusion within your school or district. You can also invite a student with a disability as a co-organizer to show that they are the same as we. They may only differ slightly, physically or mentally. Such an event will provide a deeper understanding of the problem of exclusion of students with disabilities itself and give teens with disabilities a visible voice. True inclusion doesn't start with a policy, it starts with a person. Each of us can be the one who notices, who reaches out, and who makes someone feel seen. Because when even one person chooses to act with empathy, silence turns into connection, and a classroom full of invisible walls becomes a real community. I ask you not to remain silent when you see inappropriate treatment of students with disabilities and to take the first steps to build a barrier-free society today. And always remember that a community that excludes even one of its members is no community at all. Thank you.